Hey everyone, it's Brett here from Lights on Ekman and LOE Sequences. As some of you may have heard, I ended up taking 2025 off from the holiday light show world. After doing the Great Christmas Light Fight and then a pretty massive Halloween and holiday show follow-up in 2024, I needed a little bit of a break and a reset. But I'm back now. I've started working on sequences for 2026, and I'm really excited to be publishing new sequences again at the LOE Sequences store. A number of new sequences are already in the store and more are coming. One of the things I've really gotten into since coming back is building custom shaders. Honestly, it's become one of the most fun and expressive parts of sequencing for me. And this is really about showing what is possible when you combine AI with shader development. There are two main directions I've been working on. The first is creating entirely new visual effects that don't exist in X-Lights or are readily available in existing shaders today. And secondly, I've been taking existing X-Lights native effects and creating shaders to effectively replace them by pushing them further, adding more control, more dynamics, and more flexibility, a better visual experience without having to modify X-Lights itself. Now, all of the shaders that we're going to be showing throughout the series will be included in sequences available for purchase from loesequences.com. We will always highlight the new shaders in each sequence as we publish them. But we're also taking it a step further, and we're going to make all of the new shaders themselves freely available for download, even if you don't buy the sequences. These shaders will be free for use for both residential and commercial projects. Why? Because this is really just my way of saying thanks to the community, giving back something to the community that supported myself and my business over the last 6 years. All right, let's jump into the first shader in the series, which is the new fire shader. X-Lights already has a native fire effect, so why do we need a new one? What I wanted to do here was give you something that gives a lot more control, feels a lot more natural, especially as you scale it across larger props or even a full house. So the goal with this shader was more realism, more control, easier usability, and a better visual experience without having to do things like fight value curves just to get the look you want. So let's start with the panel. You can see there are a number of controls here, things like flame base, flame height, color decision. I'm going to walk through all these, but I want to start with color. Now, these are the default settings on this panel that you see that I've already tuned for what I think is the best overall look. One of the great things about X-Lights, of course, is that it gives you the sequencer full control. You can take advantage and make it really your own. Now, for me, this use fire colors on-off box might be the best part of the effect because it's not relying on value curves in the color effects panel, right? With the normal fire effect, you've got to change the hue or you've got to change the HSV values to get the color that you want, which if you wanted to change colors during the effect, you'd have to use a slider and probably have undesirable colors, but also it's going to change the entire hue of both the base and the flame itself. When you uncheck use fire colors, it's going to use the native X-Lights color palette. First selection for the base, second selection for the flame. Third selection for the embers, if you have embers turned on. And I'll show you what that looks like. And that's pretty neat. Also, what this allows you to do is if you were to have colors using gradients, you can actually change the base or the flame with a predefined gradient that's going to actually let you be much more creative or expressive on a Halloween color for fire, or on a blue and white fire for Christmas, or a red and green fire for Christmas, or whatever you might want to end up doing. All right, now let's walk through the fire itself and how it's actually built and how it behaves. We'll look at it on this mega tree. So, what are the major controls? The first is the base, the orange height. This defines the base of the flame, where the fire starts, and how much of the lower layer you see. You can have the base be very small, you can have the base be a very high part of the tree. Now, as you bring it up, you're going to see the fire is higher off the base. As you bring it down, it'll compress and tighter, more concentrated burn. Now, on top of that is orange turbulence. So the base turbulence is going to give you control of how active or stable that base layer is. Lower the value, the more stable, less variability. The higher the value, you'll see a much more movement, flicker, and movement in the flame that makes the flame look more dynamic. So now let's look at the flame height controls. The flame height control controls how far the fire extends upwards. The lower you are, the lower the flame goes. The higher you go over time, with or without value curves, you can make the flame go up and go down. And that will control how much of a percentage of the overall height that you're looking to control, which actually gives you much more control than the native effect did. Flame fall off controls how quickly the flame dissipates as it rises. Higher values keep the flame strong all the way up. Lower values create a more natural fade as the fire climbs over time. Flame density controls how thick or full the flame appears. Lower the density values gives you a more broken, wispy look. Higher values fills everything in and makes the fire feel more solid. Then we have turbulence for that flame. How turbulent do you want the actual flame to be as it's working its way up? So lots of neat controls that you can play with, make the fire do exactly what you want it to do. Very powerful with value curves as well. But I said, one thing that fires have are sparks or embers, and I think those are valuable in X-Lite. So let's take a look at those. So when you enable the flames and the fire, the sparks or the embers, you're going to see them start to lift off the flame. They're going to come from behind the orange layer in front of the flame layer. And remember, they are controlled also, if you're using fire colors, by the third selected shader. So if I've unselected the fire colors and I'm putting my own custom shader colors in, but I want to have those sparks be a different color, you can do that. Now the ember amount is pretty straightforward. So the embers will decide how many you have, from very few to much more. The ember speed, of course, controls how fast they're going. You can also control how visible or pronounced the embers are, depending on how strong you want them to be, with ember size, making them look a little bit bigger. And then also ember trail. You can actually make them start looking like shooting meteors if you like. At this point, you're not just adding detail to the fire, you're actually starting to create entirely different effects. You can push this forward, something like a meteor effect, or slow it down and create something closer to snowfall or drifting particles. Again, you've got all these different capabilities where I can do things like zoom out or zoom in. That's kind of neat, right? That's something that's happening just because I've zoomed in on the effect, and now I'm really getting those meteor embers. I can make the meteor embers go slow. I can make them go downwards. There's just some neat things I can do just by the basic shader controls and then playing with the rest of the controls here. So anyways, this new shader is all about control and flexibility. You're not just turning on a fire effect, you're shaping how it behaves at every level, from the base to the flame to the embers themselves. This is a great example of how shaders can extend what X-Lite already does without needing to modify the core software. And if you want to try it out, it'll be available through LOE sequences along with the sequence themselves. I hope you found this interesting. I hope there's interest in this new series and the work that I've been doing to develop new shaders. If you've got an idea for a visual effect that you've never been able to find, feel free to send me a note through Facebook and give me your idea, and I'll see if I can turn it into a shader that you can use in your show. So looking forward to episode 2, which should be dropping shortly. Thanks for your time.